If you've been on the lookout for a $350 FreeSync monitor that can go from 30 to 144 frames per second, the Nixeus Vue 24 might be the one for you. Hey everybody, welcome to PC Perspective. I'm Ryan Shrout, joined by Alan Malventano. We're here today to talk about another variable refresh monitor.
One that I'm excited about then.
Yeah, so this is interesting. This is the Nixeus Vue 24-inch. I guess the exact model number is NX-VUE24A or B. We'll talk about the differences about that in a second. But this is a FreeSync monitor.
It is.
Not a G-Sync monitor. This is actually an AMD-compatible FreeSync monitor.
Right.
That offers up some interesting specifications, and is why we're particularly interested in it.
Yes. We were initially interested in it because Nixeus, in some forum posts that I was seeing come by, they were claiming that their overdrive was working correct.
Okay.
And this was like way back when we had the initial
when
issues.
no overdrive was working correct.
No overdrive was working correct, right? Now, the monitor wasn't ready then, but like it's out now, and it's actually on pre-order right now on Amazon and Newegg.
Either pre-order or for sale as of today. Yeah.
Yep. And so we got one in, took a look at it. First things first, overdrive works as I would expect it. It might be a little bit, a little bit of negative ghosting visible, but it's good, right?
Well, let's start with like the base specifications.
Sure.
It's a 24-inch, as the name would imply.
1080p.
Screen, 1920 by 1080. TN panel.
Yes.
It is capable of up to 144 hertz refresh.
It is, and it goes all the way down to 30 in FreeSync mode.
Right. So in terms of the FreeSync monitor, it has the widest range of variable refresh that we've seen thus far, 30 to 144. And we tested it and validated it right about 30 to 31 is when it starts to phase in and out of its variable refresh. Obviously, the same thing applies here with this monitor as we've seen with every other FreeSync monitor. Once you go below or above that range, you go into a VSync on or VSync off mode. Still no changes from AMD on that front. And
you got all the...
You've got tons of input options back here. You've got DisplayPort, dual DVI, VGA,
and HDMI.
In HDMI, you have a audio pass-through, I guess, 3.5mm audio.
There's audio in, like so from...
Oh, just audio in, and then it has a couple of integrated speakers that are...
They're tinny. They're
as you would expect, kind of integrated monitor speakers to be, I guess. Also worth noting, so this stand that we're using here, which is really hard to see with all the black on black on black, is the lower end stand.
Yes, the stand that comes with the B model, if there's a B at the end of the part number.
It stands for base, as in basic. There's no rotation, there's no rotation, there's no height adjustment.
There's tilt.
There's tilt,
a little bit, that's all you get.
If you get the model that ends with an A at the end, you get a higher end stand that supports
that actually has the up, down,
height adjustment,
and
rotation if you want to do it, which with a TN panel like this, you probably don't ever want to rotate it into portrait mode, but it gives you the option if you need to do that for some reason. So that's kind of like the base specifications. It has a VESA mount on the back of it as well. Build quality seems fine. It's a low cost
The better stand
monitor.
is the A model, just to
better stand is the A model, VUE24.
Well, we did notice though, like since it's supposed to be tailored more for like gaming, maybe a person going to LAN parties and stuff, or they're just transporting their monitor a lot, it might be worth it for them to just go, because like this is a very light, like really light with that stand. The stand weighs almost nothing. So as long as you can deal with the not having the height adjust, and if that kind of a couple inches off the desk from the bottom of the display is just good enough for you for your purposes, and there's only there's 4 screws that hold that on there, and actually it kind of unclips too. Like it just kind of like slides into that channel. So that might actually be better for the kind of audience for this.
Build quality seems good. Nothing fancy on it. Everything is matte, which is nice. Like the screen is matte finish.
No glossy anything.
The bezel is matte finish, which is again kind of tailored towards gamers in that respect, right? No reflections off lights or overhead lights or anything behind you.
Yep.
So let's talk about then variable refresh experience on it. Good.
Yeah, everything you would expect from FreeSync, and then some, because you get the full range, like as full of a range as we've seen on any FreeSync display so far.
And because the resolution is low, 1080p, you don't have to worry about as often ever going below that 30 hertz mark. It should be very easy for you to set your game settings where you kind of target the 60 hertz.
Right.
And you get a whole bunch of leeway down without having to go into VSync on or VSync off mode. And then because it has such a high peak at 144 hertz, you never have to worry about it up there, except for rare extreme cases as well. So it's nice to have this big range, and for AMD gamers that are looking for a variable refresh display, that's a great idea.
The only thing I noticed on the bottom end is if you're looking at like a very dark, like low contrast kind of scene, like dark background or in a dark area of a game or something, and the refresh rate starts getting towards 30, you have to be specific, like up close to the screen looking for it, but you'll see like a little bit of like noise, like kind of grainy effect, just because you're going at the bottom end of the refresh rate of a TN panel, which does not like going at a low refresh rate, right?
So let's talk about the TN panel specifically. There's a couple of oddities we wanted to mention here in terms of out-of-the-box quality, gamma, that type of stuff.
Yes. So the settings for this display, there is a gamma setting.
Which is on or off?
Which is off or on, yes. The default is off.
Yeah.
And Nixeus told us ahead of time, actually it's in the manual as well, they say the off setting is supposed to be a gamma of 2.6, which is not typical. Usually, which is also what happens to be the on setting, shoots for a gamma of 2.2. So the typical display that you would use is usually gamma 2.2.
That's the target.
That's the target. That's the typical, when you calibrate displays, that's usually what you calibrate them for. And so the way that the gamma works is if the display looks kind of washed out, chances are the gamma's too low, like the number just drops down. And if the number's too high, then it makes it really, really like harsh contrast, and like, brights are really bright and darks are really dark, that kind of thing. So why make a default of 2.6? Seemed kind of weird.
Did.
But then, until we looked at it. So it turns out when you look at this particular TN panel and you're looking at it straight on, you kind of need to be at a gamma of 2.6 in order to make it look normal to you, just because of the way that this TN panel works.
So we're not exactly 100% sure on the specifics, but it looks like, honestly, we've seen a lot of TN panels here, that the angle of the pixels is and how the light is expelled from the display is a little bit different than any other TN panel we've seen before.
Yeah, we did notice.
Like if you tilt it down away from you, you kind of get more towards the typical TN view that you would expect to see.
Yeah, so with your typical TN panel, if you notice, like as you're getting up from your desk, all of a sudden it looks washed out, or if somebody's looking at it from the side, all of a sudden it looks washed out. This one is kind of designed to be in that washed out area, but it's compensated for
by changing the gamma.
By changing the gamma, right? And if you wanted to see it like in the native kind of fashion, just what it seems to be, you'd actually have to be looking at it like looking almost up from like you'd have to duck down at the desk.
Do you think there's a specific reason they had done that? Is it some characteristic of, and that's maybe what helps enable this 30 to 144 hertz capability, or is it just?
We can only speculate, but I will say this, there was an interesting side effect that if you do compensate for it, then the viewing angles are actually like amazing for a TN panel, because you're already in that state where it usually shifts to. But if you're compensating for it, yes, it's not a perfect ideal thing. But again, this is a gaming display. You're not going to be doing photographic, color reproduction work on it or anything like that. You just want a fast responding display that's a low cost. Definitely this, right? It actually made the viewing angle thing better overall, just in the end, once it was compensated for correctly.
So were you able to calibrate it using kind of our typical calibration capability then, like for people who might want to do that? Yeah,
and we're kind of... I tried this both ways here. The Nixeus review guide and the manual and like everything else, and even like emails from them, they were like, look, if you're going to calibrate this, you should set the gamma setting on, which puts it
run the calibration.
Which puts it at 2.2, or what they think is 2.2, or what they're shooting for, and then do your calibration. Now, I measured with our colorimeter like what the gamma actually was in the base settings without adjusting anything, right? And when it's supposed to be 2.2, it's actually 1.6 from straight on. Right? If you look at it from underneath, it would be closer, right? And then with the gamma setting off, it's supposed to be 2.6. It's actually 1.9, which is pretty close to 2.2. Now, first I tried calibrating it the way that they suggested, and you can calibrate it. You can get it close. It looks pretty darn good for a TN panel, actually. Even you were looking at it from across the office and like, wow, that looks pretty good, right? But there's a catch. If you have the gamma setting on and the display is going for for what it thinks is 2.2. It actually tends to look washed out in reality because it's actually 1.6. If you calibrate it, that fixes it until you fire up a game.
Right, so it fixes it in Windows.
Yes.
Which will accept color
Calibration,
profiles.
yes.
But in-game, Direct3D, DirectX does not accept color profiles,
right.
as far as I know.
Right. So basically anything that's calibration-wise just goes away in a game. So what we're going to suggest, now we'll give you, actually going to put both profiles in the article
sure.
with the settings that you would adjust for and here's the profile to use. But I would recommend to gamers, if you want a better desktop experience on Windows, but you also want to be able to game at, what Nixeus designed as a gamma for, your typical gaming.
Right.
I would say, this is kind of a hack, but have the gamma setting to the 2.6 to the gamma off value, and then use our calibration file for that, which will get it basically to the same end result in Windows. But when you fire up a game, it's not going to all of a sudden start looking a little bit washed out.
So if that's too much detail for a lot of you in terms of like you've never done color calibration and stuff like that, read Alan's article. He'll detail a little bit more about that, and then we'll give you the not quite easy enough details on how to apply those in Windows. It's a really kind of a dumb process. But once you do it, it can drastically change how your monitor looks to you for Windows and for other purposes as well.
Yeah, but gaming, great. It's a
I agree. Like the initial oddity of, hey, that doesn't look like any other TN panel that we've seen when out of the box. I was initially very worried about, oh no, this is not going to be very good image quality in games or in Windows. It's a bad experience.
Right.
Even though it has all these weird things, they seem to be compensating for it in the firmware with the way they're handling gamma and color. And overall, like gaming on it was fine. It was great.
Yeah.
As you would expect. It's as good as you could expect a TN panel to be. For gaming, and the fact that they have this really wide variable refresh range for FreeSync users just kind of shows you that capability is there. Now, I think the best part about this, I don't know if we mentioned price.
Yeah.
This the base model is supposed to have an MSRP of $329 with the lower end stand. The higher end model with the A at the end of its model number is supposed to be $349. And actually, as of today, as we record this, I'm looking on Amazon, and you can get that A model with the better stand for $329 itself. So you're getting a 1080p, 144 hertz, variable refresh, FreeSync capable TN screen for $329. And I don't think, like if you look at the G-Sync market, I don't really think there's a lot of competition in that price range.
There isn't.
For anything.
Right.
Now it is a lower resolution, and we've been very up on the 25 by 14 and even the 4K FreeSync and G-Sync panels. And now we're getting the 21 by 9 FreeSync panels and G-Sync panels, and those are all very exciting. But the truth is, the majority of the market is in this 24-inch 1080p mindshare still. This is where their budget is. They can afford $350 for a monitor, $1,050, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
And AMD has been very high up on this Nixeus model for a long time, kind of saying this is the one, you pay attention to this one, make sure you get these guys a look. And we're doing it, and we're actually really impressed. So hopefully there won't be any stock issues. You'll be able to buy it. And
it does seem like it's kind of a startup company though.
Yeah.
So
I maybe they had been doing, they have other models out there, but they're not a well-known name for sure in the display market. So we're pretty impressed with the display for what it is,
especially for the price.
Yeah. So, make sure you guys go to PCPro.com. We'll have the link in the description below here. Check out his full review if you're interested in all that color calibration stuff. He'll have details as well as the color profiles you can download, so you don't have to have all the equipment and go through that whole process yourself as well, which is nice.
It'll get you. It won't be perfect because there might be a difference.
Every monitor is
slightly different, but at least it should get you very much better or closer to the ballpark.
Yeah. Indeed. Check out that story, guys, for more information. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thanks.